Oh, hello there. Welcome back to Redstone 101. Today we'll be covering comparator outputs, locks, and clocks. Although we will only be covering one clock because I think it's the only clock anyone will ever need. The first thing we're going to look at is the comparator. So the comparator takes a redstone output from items that can hold whole thing, so storage devices, and it takes out an output depending the strength of the output is depending on how full the storage device is. So as you can see, this chest is completely full and is given an output of 15. If I removed just a little bit of it, the output is no longer 15. As you can see, it has gone down to this point here. So if I then put in a torch there, it will light up. So it's going from 15 down to 13 because I removed it. So it is all done on percentages of the max volume of this field. So one stack of items counts for one of these spaces, or you can have a unique item as well. If you've got access to lots of unique items and you want to do a percentage, like a high percentage, then unique items are the best because obviously you need a lot less of them. So you could have swords all along here to fill it up, and you would need a lot less swords than you would need, etc. The same with stone swords. So if you're using stone for this system, then you could use stone swords as well, which requires a lot less stone and a little bit of wood. But you would only need 27 swords instead of 27 stacks of stone or something of the similar thing. But this is really useful for sorting systems because you can detect the percentage of a hopper, and you, depending on the percentage, it unlocks the hopper that allows things to go into their rightful place. But we'll cover that in a later video. Sorry, later in the video. Other things that can take a comparator output is you can have a barrel, composter. Obviously, only certain things to go into a composter, but a composter is really good use for power sources within redstone circuits, and it's one that I use the most. I use this more than the redstone block because the redstone block has a chance of bug powering things. Shulker's the same storage devices like a chest or a barrel, and you can take a comparator output of that. Same with a hopper, a dropper, dispenser over there, a lectern that has a book depending on what page it's turned to. That's probably one of the most unique ones and also very useful. We have a brewing stand, which is one of the more complicated ones and like iffy because of percentages and stuff, because how unique thing is. I won't cover this too much. And the same as well with a cauldron. One of the most useful ones other than the composter is the hopper, and the hopper is probably used the most when it comes to locking. So at the moment you've got a redstone torch here, which as you can see it does not lock over maybe quite a few times. For this redstone torch, it does, none of these are locked completely because it doesn't actually have any contact, because redstone torch powers the block above it, so none of these are being powered. This one here, as you can see, this block is now powered, which will lock this one here. So it travels through this into this one, but it will not leave this hopper because it is currently being powered. When powered, this is locked, which is one of the main elements when it comes to item sorters, locking the hopper up. So here we've got another one. So this checks this block here above it first before checking this one, but because it is not directly flowing into this block and it is connected somewhat to this thing here, it is then getting powered through this, and this, because it doesn't count this as one block entity, it counts it as two. So this gets powered, which powers this one, so this also gets locked as well. But this is another way of showing that this gets locked. So unless it is going face down. So as you saw with this one, it does flow from this one straight to this one, then locks it. If you have it facing any of the sides that you've got here, out of these three, it will also lock it. A unique thing about droppers as well is even though this is facing this direction here, it will always go down first before following that hopper line. So if I then destroy this torch, so as you see there's a lever in the top hopper, if I destroy the torch, it will flow down to the bottom. Even if there was a chest up here, it would flow down first before going into the chest. Using this locking mechanism and you, the comparator output you got here, this is how you make a item sorter. Have the hopper facing towards comparator, which then sends a signal strength of 3 down to here, which gets picked up by this block and extended by the repeater into this block, which depowers this torch here. Just take some wood. So the number of blocks for this circuit to for number of blocks that needs to be in the hopper for this circuit to activate is 44, I believe, and you can test this by putting in a full block of oak wood. Because of the percentage that this takes up, was more than enough to go. The percentage of one block was enough to power this redstone line, which then powered this, which allowed it to flow through until the percentage of the hopper was down to this amount. When it's at this amount here, 45, the signal strength is not strong enough to reach this repeater, which means that this torch does not, stays lit. Lock keeps the hopper locked. So this is how an item filter works. This is the first block. The first section here is the items that you want to go into the filter, and then you tend to have filter items here, so other items can't flow in to this item filter. So this one here would be for oak wood, so only oak wood would go into this hopper now, because say iron cannot fit in any of these spaces. And the reason you put your filter items on these 4 sections here and not in the first one is because item hoppers always take items from this first section. So if I then switched it over, so my 41 oak wood was here and more oak went through, the item filter item would drop down. So this is why you always keep it so your filter system is always in here and the item you want to be sorted is in the first slot there. So this is how item filters work, and what tends to happen is you have a water stream going above these hoppers or a hopper chain going above these hoppers, and then only the items that you want to go into these chests will go into these chests. So for this system here, as an example, I used this lovely block because what else can you use it for? And if let's say if I wanted to use wood, as you see at the moment is being powered, which depowers this torch here, which allows items to flow down until the signal strength is not enough to reach the torch. And now if I had, let's say, some redstone dust and some oak wood, if I chuck some red dust on top of this hopper to simulate something going over top of it via a water stream or a hopper, as you can see it will not get pulled into the hopper because there's no space. Whereas if I chucked wood into it, it'll get sucked straight in and go through the system. So that is the basics of item sorters. Another use for comparators for the hoppers as well is a randomizer. So because a stone sword or a diamond sword or unique items of any sort take up a whole space, whereas a button takes up a 64 of a space, so this button could be dust or any stackable item. This will give a lot less signal strength than the sword. So if it was just the sword in there, the signal strength will be enough to light up this lamp and this lamp, as you'll see. I push the button, the sword goes from the dropper, it shoots into the hopper. Because there's one item in the hopper, the comparator sees how full the hopper is, and because it's a sword, they know that the signal strength needs to be this to reach this. Whereas, if it was a button inside the hopper, because it doesn't count as a full slot, it doesn't count as a sixth of the item's inventory, the hopper's inventory, it will only send out a redstone pulse of 1, which will reach this one here, as you'll see. It did. But because a sword counts as a fifth of the inventory, it will send out a redstone pulse of 3. Because if this hopper was full, it'd send out a pulse of 15. But a sword counts as a fifth full because it takes up 1 out of 5 of the available space. It sends out 15 divided by 5, which is a signal strength of 3, which is 1, 2, 3, picked up by the repeater, which goes into the lamp. But because the button here only sends, it doesn't count as a fifth, and it counts like a lot less, it will only give a signal strength of 1 because of the strength that will be into the hopper. It detects that there is something in the hopper, so it has to give off a signal strength of 1, but it's not enough to give off a signal strength of 2 because of percentages. And the reason this is called a randomizer is because a dropper shoots off one of the 9 spaces at random. At the moment it's a 50-50 between a stone sword or the button. So that was the sword because both lights went up. Again, it was the sword. That time it was the button. So it was a 50-50 at the moment if it's the sword or the button. And you can change the odds by putting buttons all like this. So now you've got a 9th chance of the sword being shot out, and you have 8 out of 9 chances that's the button. This is useful because you have 8 out of 9 chances that only this lamp will light up, and you've got 1 out of 9 chances that both lamps will light up. So that was a 1 in 9 chance of happening, but it happened. And that is the most common response that you'll get from this. So this is called an EFO hopper clock. Now this might look slightly complicated, but it's really simple. What you have here is you have 2 hoppers facing into each other. And you also have a redstone block which locks one of the hoppers. So at the moment I've got an override system here, which is this switch here, which lock it. But if I put in, let's say, I put in 3 buttons. So what happens is, let me lock this for now. As you can see when I open this up, this has no buttons in at the moment. So this is currently locked. So what will happen is these 3 buttons will flow into this one. When the 3 buttons reach this one here, this comparator will take an output signal, put it into this block here, which then travels and puts it into this. So this is a redstone. This is called a redstone clock because the output can be taken from either this space here, when the redstone block is here, or when the redstone block is here. And the time taken for it to go backwards and forwards is completely dependent on how many items you put in here. So as you can see, it was going quite quick when I put 3, but if I put let's do 16 items in, and let's turn off the override. As you can see, every 16 items it will flow from one side, as you can see here, being decreased because it goes to the other one, and then which switches over the power to this side, and then this side will get filled up again. The items are flowing from one hopper back to the other hopper, which powers these pistons and closes these pistons. It's a really simple design, and it's called an EFO hopper clock. If you want to know more information on it, check out EFO's channel, as he probably covers it in much more detail, as it is his design. It's quite an old design, but it's probably one of the best still. And right here, I've just got an override switch. Keeps this piston here locked. These 2 pistons do need to be sticking pistons though. That's it for today, guys. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the content. If you liked this video and you found it educational, then please hit that like button and hit the subscribe button. If you've got any recommendations of any things you want me to cover at all, then leave a comment in the description. Cheers, guys, and bye.